Are you in desperate need of a gluten-free pie crust, but you are the farthest thing from a baker there is? I have you covered. I want to show you how to get the perfect pie crust every time using a simple gluten-free pie crust mix. Hey friends, it is Alicia Falkhorton from Simply Gluten-Free Kitchen, your gluten-free pestie that has all of the best recipes, tips, tricks, and today I'm going to show you how to make the perfect pie crust that is simple and easy just using a box. All right, I love to use the King Arthur pie crust pre-made mix when I need something super easy and fast. I don't want to make it from homemade. I get the best results with this bad boy right here. So I'm going to pop it open and I'm going to follow the instructions to a T, but I'm hoping to give you some tips and tricks along the way because the first few times that I made this recipe, it didn't come out very good. It was either concrete or it fell all apart and not in the yummy flaky way. So I want to kind of give you some of the tricks that I've learned in the last few years. So I'm going to pop all that into a bowl. I'm using plant-based butter because I also cannot have dairy. So I'm using a plant-based butter. It'll work just the same. Just make sure it's really cold and you're going to need a whole entire cup, all right? So I'm going to take this and I'm going to start chunking it up just a little bit with my little butter knife that I have here. So I'm just going to pop it into some tablespoon cubes. You do not have to be super particular and make them all the same size. It really does not matter. And like so. And then I'm going to put it into my bowl. Pop those in there like that. And next, you would probably be wiping your fingers off on your apron if you're wearing one, but I'm always terrible about wearing one and I ruin all my clothes and get a bunch of oil stains on them, but that's besides the point. All right, so now we're going to take a pastry cutter. I like to use my old school pastry cutter right here. I have a link to my favorite one down in the description. But if you don't have one of these, you can also use a fork. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. I really, really suggest if you're going to be making some pie crust at home to get a pastry cutter, all right? So we're just going to keep chopping up this butter with our pastry cutter, and we're mixing it into the flour until we get pea-size little granules, okay? And it's going to take a little bit. Usually it's better if you keep the thing in the bowl, but sometimes it'll get stuck like this. I usually just kind of help it along, get it off of there, and then you just keep pushing it down. I like to bring it from the sides as well. Make sure we're getting a good mixture. All right, so we got our pea-size granules here. Here's the super important part. We have our cold water. Now you want it to be really cold, not ice cold, just the coldest your tap will go. And I have 6 tablespoons in here. Now it could take anywhere from 4 to 6, sometimes even 8. This is where the gluten-free baking gets a little tricky, but I'm going to show you the consistency, all right? So it's going to be easy, I promise. So I'm going to start with like 3-ish tablespoons first. Look on my edge here, make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be. All right, we're doing that. Then I'm going to take my pastry cutter again, and I'm going to start mixing that water in, and it's going to start forming a dough. Now, why does it make a difference and there's a variation of how much water to use? That is because every mixture of gluten-free mixes uses different blends between the starches and the flour. So depending on what that ratio is going to depend on how much water you're going to need, all right? Now, this specific mix obviously isn't going to change that much, so the amount of water will be very similar to the same, but I just don't want you, like I used to do, try to bake a whole entire pie crust and then have it not even hold together because you didn't have enough liquid, okay? So I'm going to show you what the consistency should be, and then you can add more water as needed. So I'm going to take my pastry cutter out here now that I have mixed my stuff in a little bit. If I can keep the flour in the bowl, that would be beneficial. Now, this is the part, baking 101, take your jewelry off because you're going to get your hands dirty and you don't want to be picking dough out of your pretty rings, okay? All right, so let me feel this. This is still super dry. I can just tell. So I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons more, and now I'm getting in here with my hands. It's time to play with the Play-Doh, friends. This is why I like what I do so much. It's so much fun. I also, and they don't tell you to do this on the box, but my big tip with this as well is you can kind of let this sit here for a hot second, because then your water is going to absorb into that flour a little bit, so you can see if it's going to be too crumbly or not. This is feeling pretty good. So I'm going to take my little scraper here and I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl, and I'm going to bop it down in onto my mat, my silicone pastry mat, which I absolutely love this thing. It shows me all the measurements. All right, I'm going to knead it just a bit. And this is the consistency you want. Now, if it is too dry, you're going to have a lot of flakes coming off of it. You would not be able to move it around like this without just tons of flakes coming off of it, okay? So, actually, we're going to grab those goodies too off of there. So this is a good consistency. I'm liking this. So I am now going to split this in half. I'm going to take my cutter here. I'm going to cut it in half. Roll each side. There's a good inside look. I'm going to kind of make it into a ball. And then we're going to go get our plastic wrap so they can be popped in the fridge for about 15 minutes. That's really going to let everything set up nice, and it's going to give that flour enough time to really absorb. Why are we putting plastic wrap on it? That is because this gluten-free flour, and pretty much all gluten-free flours, like to dry out really, really fast. I'm telling you, gluten-free baking can be a little finicky sometimes. Companies have gotten much better, especially recently, about making pre-made mixes to make gluten-free baking easier for like the average person who doesn't want to spend tons of time in the kitchen. Plastic wrap drives me crazy. Okay, pop that in there. Wrap it up real good. Then I give it a nice squish with my hands just to flatten it out a little bit, more like a disc, like so. And then they're going to go in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. All right, it's been 15 minutes. I have a magically clean surface. That's right, magic. Let's roll. So we're going to take it out of the plastic wrap, and I'm going to show 2 different ways that you can roll this bad boy out. Now, if you do not have a fancy schmancy silicone mat, 1, I suggest you get one, link in the comments. 2, you can use 2 different pieces of plastic wrap and then roll it with a rolling pin. Or in my case with my silicone mat, I'm just going to do a little bit of cornstarch. Put that on there. And then the top, I can either use cornstarch or I'll show you the plastic trick. Deal? Deal. Perfect. Now, why do I suggest this fancy mat? Well, it actually has the different size inches for your circumference for your different pie crusts or things that you're doing. And then I love this rolling pin because it actually has the centimeters and inches right on the end, so you can see how thick it is. Make sure it's kind of equal. So it's not sticking at all because of my plastic wrap and my cornstarch. So I'm going to get this bad boy started here. And I like to go kind of in X's and then crosses. So there's my cross. Now I need to make my X. And then let me show you the other way to do this with some cornstarch on the top. Kind of rub it in there. Okay, you can also get a little bit on your rolling pin. So X that way, X this way. I like to kind of bring in my edges a little bit as I roll it out. I never claim to be an expert at doing this. I'm going to move that because I can just see myself doing that. I just can. I can see it. So we're a little thick on this end. So I'm going to bring it into my crossy. See how it's already kind of getting stuck to that because it's gluten-free and it's a pain in the tuchus. I'm going back to the plastic wrap, guys. It's so much easier. And then you don't have to keep layering your pie crust with cornstarch over and over and over again. All right, so I'm going to bring it down from here, roll it up. Let's do my cross. We're a little thick over there. Now I'm going to do my X. X this way. Perfect. Well, as perfect as Alicia's going to get it. So, you don't have the fancy thing, you don't know the inches, all that. Take your pie container, which I'm just going to use this aluminum one that I got at the dollar store, and make sure that it fills around it. I'm actually going to go just a teeny tiny bit more to make it perfectly 10 inches, and then I think this is going to work great. But you can set this on here, and then that would give you an idea if you haven't rolled out big enough or not. So do a little scan. Is it about equal all the way around? I'm a little thicker over here again. Let's move this way a little more, like so. And this is when my microphone died, so now we're just going to do a little voiceover because I did not want to have to re-record the whole entire video. So here I am scraping up the pie crust from my silicone mat so I can move it over to my pan. Now this can get a little tricky, especially if it's sticky, but I really like the scraper to help me get it over there. All right, so now we're inside the pan. I'm just going to maneuver the crust around to make sure it's nice and center, and there's a little bit coming off all of the edges. And don't be afraid to pull off some of the crust that is a little bit thick on the one side and then add it to the more thin side. Just kind of play with it like Play-Doh. I know, it's just adult Play-Doh. This is all this is. All right, so once you get it nice and neat inside of the pan, you can do your crusts any way you want. This is a very simple, easy method where you just take the end of a knife and you go around and push down to give it a little bit of a design, or you could do the pinching method. There's a lot of different ones that you can try, but this is a super simple, easy one, and most of the time this is what the crusts look like when you get them out of the freezer section anyway. So keep it simple, keep it basic. And my microphone still isn't working at this point, so we're just going to do a little voiceover here as well. I have no idea what I'm saying because I do not script any of these videos, but if you enjoyed this video and you want even more tips and tricks for this Thanksgiving, just make sure to use the playlist that I'm pointing at right here. You can also check the description for my Thanksgiving meal plan. It's everything you need, recipes, shopping list, and more. All right, till next time.